I've just seen more and more that the power of the United States is in the states. And that is by design, right? So, like each state has its own state constitution, it has its own laws, it has its own legislation, it has its own Congress, right? So, like
Yeah.
Washington State, like tomorrow, if they had the willpower, they could institute universal childcare tomorrow. They could do it. They
Well,
could.
yeah, theoretically. And we're like $2 billion in debt.
Yeah, okay. Which isn't supposed to happen at all,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I hear you though.
okay. Yeah, so I want to move on. I want to talk about Mamdani. Okay. Um,
I was gonna I was gonna say there are a couple of amazing states here in Washington that are providing free childcare for their whole state. And I know you want to talk about Mamdani, but also Mamdani was not the first one to do that. New Mexico was the first one to
yes.
say, "Hey,
So
yeah,
not in terms of universal childcare.
okay,
The what I want to talk about is kind of shifting ideologies here in the United States, right?
hmm
So I haven't watched it yet, but there was a video that popped up in my YouTube feed. And I think it said Trump supporters voted for a socialist, like what happens next, or something like that. Because what happened in New York was that a lot of people who had voted for Donald Trump like turned out and voted for Mamdani, who is like an outspoken, like has said, I'm a social democrat. Like that's
yeah,
what I want to do for this city. And so um how am I tying into everything that we were just talking about? Um so I think that the three bills that you have that you sent me kind of highlight a fundamental problem with childcare. Um, and that bleeds on into K through 12 education in the United States. Funding is scattered, and diverse, which can be helpful because you're not reliant on just one funding source. Um, but if childcare is seen as a human right, then there's no like barriers to like funding high quality like childcare because you understand that um, it is a right for a child to have access, for families to have access um, to high quality childcare. So the reason why I brought Mandani up is because there seems to be um, a shift in the amount of people that would support like a social democratic agenda, like one of the things on that agenda could be universal childcare, right, for everybody. um, so I wanted to talk then about what I'm doing here in Finland and what I'm seeing here in Finland, and kind of tie this all together, right? So I'm finishing up my capstone research
hmm
project. I'm doing a qualitative case study of the Finnish educational system, right? Focusing on early childhood and elementary schools. So Finland has like a really long history of um, providing care to children. So I made like a little list timeline here. So 1973, they passed the Child Daycare Act, which obligated local authorities to provide daycare uh, and granted the right of daycare for all children who needed it. So this is over 50 years ago, right? They're saying every child is entitled to childcare. 1985 to 1990, they created a national child home care allowance system. So this gave funding for families to be able to choose whether to take their kids to daycare or to use that funding to care for their kids at home.
hmm
Um, 1996, the subjective right to childcare was fully implemented by law. 2016, oh, sorry, 2021, Finland adopted its first national child strategy. So this is based in the UN Convention for the Rights of the Child, which the US remains the only country who signed the convention to not ratify it. So this was written in 1989, and Finland ratified it in 1991, and then adopted like their full strategy in 2021, with a focus on children's rights, adequate incomes, and poverty reduction. Um, so the detractors, right, in the United States will be like, this is socialism. Yeah, it's socialism, right? But what is wrong with socialism, right? Why do we want or don't want socialism? So Finland is paying for all these things through really high taxes. Like taxes can be really, really high up here. But childcare is extremely popular here. Like the idea of paying tax dollars to provide universal childcare is extremely popular here. It's extremely popular. And the quality of the early childhood educational system here is internationally renowned, right? And that goes for like elementary and secondary school too. Kids here get high scores on international testing. Um, they get the highest score on like child well-being, although that's I've heard that that's kind of going down in recent years. I can't remember why. I think it has to do with like social media and like we can
Yeah,
talk. That's a
that would
whole
make
thing.
sense. Yeah, yeah.
um, but it's extremely popular. People here are not only willing, but like are so supportive. They're just supportive of
Mhm.
paying their own money to help society, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. John, a couple of things come up for me when, with everything that you just said. And I think ultimately, I think when we talk about things like socialism, when we talk about universal anything, I think we have to look at America's history once again. And when we talk about socialism, socialism from our own government and from our own people was looked at as a very bad thing. Socialism is horrible. Every country that has that are socialists are bad. And so then it's like when you get taught that our whole country's like our whole time this country has been a country and you're taught that and it's been generational, everyone's taught that now, right? Like how do you then go, oh wait, actually socialism is good, and having being able to provide for everyone is good. I think that we a lot of things have, I mean, and we have to look too at like how different people in America are treated as well. Even if you do talk about like supporting your communities or whatever, it's like, yes, we'll support our own community right here, the people that look like us, have the same culture as us and things like that. But when it goes outside of that, we don't want those people to be on the same level as us. So we don't want them to get the same benefits and the same, the same good things that we have, type of thing. And that's just been America through the time that we were established to even right now. And we see it even more right now because there has been times in our country's like era, right, that people that people that look like me who never thought they would be like in policy or being at those tables to make the decisions were there, and then now we see how America is reacting to them. So
Mm,
we have to like, in order to talk about socialism, you have to talk about the truth about how America makes things bad or tells people things are bad if it's not benefiting the American people or those who are in power at that time,
yeah.
right? And so now I think America, and I know woke is like such a bad thing, but America is waking up, and the people are waking up to say, "Oh, wait a minute! Like all of the things that I've been taught are actually not right, and they're not benefiting me. If there's something, if there's a law passed, or if there's like this policy in place that's not benefiting someone else, it's going to trickle down to not benefiting me either. And I think that's why you have those that have voted for Trump now voting for Mamdani, because they're like, that didn't work. That was not beneficial to me. It was not beneficial to my kids and my family. And now I have someone that is saying, hey, we can change, right? We can change the way these things are, and we can do something that's beneficial to everyone as a whole.
Right.
And I think more people are seeing that. And so, again, you just, and you know, there's people out there that are trying to like erase the history, erase the things that were said, erase the things that happened. But the truth of the matter is that you can never have a society like what Mamdani talks about if you don't first say, this is what happened to us as a people, and like we want to like move, we want to heal from that. Um, and so yeah, that probably didn't answer the question, but that's just the things
No,
that came up to my mind when you
that
were
was great.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we can't have a system that mirrors Finland, you know, if you know, first, if we don't heal first from the system that were put in place to make those in
Yeah.
power stay in power.
Yeah. So there's two people that I listen to that I wanted to recommend, and that I'm gonna be putting links to them in the description of this video. But one is Heather Cox Richardson. She's a PhD in political history. Um, and I mean, she studied at Harvard. I can't remember what she studied, but a lot of big name schools. So she knows what she's doing. But
Right.
she talks a lot about the current political things going on, and then gives like a historical context to them, and examples throughout American history about like when we have seen this stuff before, how did people
Yeah.
react to it, and what did we do to fix it, right?
Hmm.
So I find like her perspectives like super helpful. And the other one is Robert Wright, who used to work for a lot of different administrations. I think he was in the Clinton administration, Obama, like I don't remember. But he talks a lot about how we actually do live in a social democracy now in the United States, but it's a corporate social democracy with all of the money trickling up towards the top 1%.
Yeah.
And so it just came to mind like that these kind of ideas, like they're not new.
Yeah.
And I think that's what scares a lot of people is like, well, we don't want to be a social, like the things that you were talking about, the history that we have, the propaganda that was spread during the Red Scare and,
Mm-hmm.
and the Cold War. Um, but these ideas aren't new, and we are already practicing a lot of them. They're just not
Yeah.
benefiting your average American. They're
Yeah.
benefiting just a select few. Um,
Yeah.
so I'll send those to you and to anybody else who wants to take a look. So I think we need to kind of like wrap up. So I have a few thoughts. I often thought that the top down approach was the way to like do educational reform, like let's get these big bills passed through Congress that mandate change, across all 50 states. And over time, I've just seen more and more that the power of the United States is in the states. And that is by design, right? So, like each state has its own state constitution, it has its own laws, it has its own legislation, it has its own Congress, right? So, like
Yeah.
Washington State, like tomorrow, if they had the willpower, they could institute universal childcare tomorrow. They could do it. They
Well,
could.
yeah, theoretically. And we're like $2 billion in debt.
Yeah, okay, which isn't supposed to happen at all,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I hear you though. No, I agree, and I know there was more to that. I do agree. I think the more I even when we went to DC too, they kept saying like if you want to make the real change, like you make a change on the state level, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
I do agree with that too. I'm like, okay, like what are states going to do? Like how are states going to like make sure that their state is doing better and taken care of? And I think because of the like constitutions that each state also has, right? Because of all of the things that they already put in place, it's hard. And there are people actively working on these things, right? There are people actively working at looking at our are like how taxes are are looked at and viewed, and like how the states make money and generate money and all of the things. There's people that's looking at all of these things as well as universal child care. But I think like to be able to shift systems, it takes a really long time, because then too you all have to be on the same page about things, and no one can ever be on the same page about things. Um, and so I think that's where the divide comes in Washington State, is that we have folks that want to appease the federal administration, and then we have folks that don't want to appease the federal administration. We have folks that believe that the states should be taxed. We have folks that don't believe that the state should be taxed. So it's like all of these things with them fighting against each other, that we have to like look at too. And then also like that whole like debt, the money. It's like we don't
Yeah,
people we don't have the money in Washington State. And then I argue we have the money in Washington State. We have billionaires that live here in
we
Washington
do.
State.
Yeah, so many.
Yeah, so many. We don't want to then we don't want we have fear of the billionaires moving out of our state, so we don't want to tax them. And our governor
Mhm.
actually just recently said that like he's up for a billionaire's tax, and what that'll
Yeah,
look like. um but yeah, there's just so much that goes into it that's really actually harder than we think. Like I think sometimes I was very much that type of person who was like, before I knew about policy, really, I was like, this can be done. I was more of an advocate, right?
yeah,
Like, this can be done. You could change everything. You need to change everything. And if you don't change anything in 2 years, I'm voting you out, type of thing. And then now I'm like, hold on. And I really do think, too, it takes the people working with their legislators. So, not
mm,
like it takes a partnership. Like the legislators actually can't do it by themselves, and their terms are 2 or 4 years. They can't do anything in those times, and we have to like be like, you know what? I understand that I might not see the change in 2 years, but I'm willing to work with you to until it changes. And I think again that goes for that like fast paced stuff. We want to see the change overnight, and that's not going to happen. And so, but you're right. We have the power, and we need to start
yeah,
seizing that power. So, yeah.
yeah. I feel like there's a shift in like you said, like people are waking up to like how like our country works or should work, and
Mm-hmm.
that by design, like the power is in the people and the government is meant to serve the people. And we're seeing that, like, all of the rallies and all of the protests and all of the people active on in the state on the state level is just creating this like bubble of pressure that is just pushing slowly upward, I think, into the federal government. And we're seeing hopefully changes going on there uh,
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I it's so much.
Yeah.
um,
It is so much. And I think, too, like with all of this, we have to think what social media plays a role in, and like how it fatigues
mm,
the people as well.
yeah,
We get tired, we get drained. It's like, and we have to like work on how we don't get drained and tired, because we have to still fight at the end of the day, or we have to still like find ways to like make things happen that we want to happen, and I say that, and I say this, the there are people that are very organized and that are very structured, and that will wait 10, 20 years to see the fruits of their labor. And I think, like, without saying much, I think we're seeing a lot of that now. Like, this stuff was not just done overnight. This stuff was very organized and intentional. And then now it's like every day we wake up to like a new executive order. We wake up to a new thing being done. Well, those things, they didn't just go to sleep on that and
yeah,
say, oh, you know
yeah,
what, I'm gonna wake up and this happens. And we need to, those who are not a part of that need to also do the same. We need to start looking at the folks that are, that will come after us. Like, so for me, for example, I need to start looking at those other students or the other people that are, in the classroom, and I need to say like, hey, we can do this together, and bring them up with me, or make a path for them So that way it's easier for them when they walk this path, or so that way they don't have to walk the same path, type of thing, if that makes sense. Like, we need to also be organized in what we do too, and try our hardest not to get fatigued. And that's really hard. I mean, it's really hard, but if we want to see this change, if we want to one day see universal childcare, if we want to one day see our kids thriving, we have to make sure that we're not getting tired in our fight, so we can pass the baton instead of dropping it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. I think that is a wonderful place to end. Thanks for
Sorry,
taking the time to do this. This is great. And we're going to need to do this again because there's
yeah,
so
for
many things that
sure.
that like we didn't talk about that I
Yeah,
think we really need to talk about. I want to talk about like um, getting early childhood onto the state constitution, like uh,
you're right there with me. You know, I've been working on that. What can we
yeah,
do? Which is
yeah.
another
I
thing.
mean,
Yeah,
um, and then like I mentioned about the UN Convention about the Rights of the Child, like I think that on a federal level is something to push for, is to get the United
yeah,
States to ratify that so that we can start, doing this thing. Like we signed it, so obviously someone thought it was a good idea,
yeah,
you know, but
yeah. We need
so
to start being held accountable though too. Like, I feel like the our nation signs a lot of things or says a lot of things. When are we going to start holding our nation accountable, or when is others going to start holding us accountable as well? Like, we have to
mm,
think of that, especially when it
yeah,
comes to our children.
yeah, for sure. Um, so we can say bye, bye. I'll
Okay.
see you later, but we don't have to hang up yet because I can edit this
Here,
out. But
and I could stop recording.
I'm
Should I
just,
stop
yeah, I
recording?
was just gonna